Hey everybody, welcome back to the Mega Maker Show. Tonight I've got special guests, Greg Porter and Joel Crawford, and we are talking about how to deal with success. I know that sounds kind of silly, but you're going to hear in a few minutes from Joel how it can be a little tricky, and I hope that we can, I hope we can help you guys with some troubles for those of you who do make it to that successful stage to kind of get over some of those humps. So why don't we start with Joel tonight. Joel, would you tell us a little bit about you, where we can find you on social media, and say hi to everybody?
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me, Izzy. Always a pleasure. I didn't bring a drill with me. I'm assuming you have a spare.
I do.
Good. Good. You can find me on Instagram. It's MD Woodshop. That's MD Missing Digit Woodshop. And then our storefront is missingdigitwoodshop.com. Otherwise, you can find me on Facebook and the various groups that we all know and love. And yeah, so I'm a woodworker, and I make things, and occasionally I make things that sell, and hopefully it keeps the doors open, and I have employees. And what else you want to know?
That's a great start, Greg. You're becoming kind of a regular here on the show, but I think for those who are first watching us, why don't you go ahead and give us your spiel? Who are you? Where are you from? And where can we find you?
Sure, Greg Porter, and I'm on YouTube as Greg's Garage. You can find me there. I do maker videos and make things, and I'm also in the various Facebook groups and on Instagram with Greg's Garage KC and gregsgarage.com. And I'm on Twitter as Steel Splinters. I need to get that over to Greg's Garage, I think. But Steel Splinters, I've always had that Twitter handle. But you asked for just a quick little background. I'm an architect during the day, and I always tell people I'm a welder, a musician, a maker at night. So during the day, I'm kind of wearing the tie and doing the business thing, and at night, I'm out here in the garage getting dirty.
Right on. Well, tonight's topic, like I said, we're going to talk about how to deal with success, and it may seem kind of strange. A lot of times we're talking about how to get to that point of success, or how to become successful with an idea or with what we're doing. But the flip side of that is, if you're not prepared, having success with an idea or a concept or a business can be a real big pain in the rear end. It can be expensive. It can be a headache. It can cause stress. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're all going to share a little bit of our experience with, some of that dealing with success. And I think Joel's going to be really our primo guy on this, because Joel just, had a huge hit with his Spartan cutting boards, and he really went from, what I would call not ground zero, but starting point to just
could say ground zero.
Balls to the wall, crazy in a matter of weeks. So he's gonna be able to share a lot of that with us. I'd like to say, one of the things that I think really makes us for a successful business person is that attitude about not giving up. I've done in my lifetime, I've done so many different things. I've tried so many different things, and I've failed so many different times. But I have had quite a few successes, and not because every idea I've ever had was a great success. It's just that I never stopped. If something failed, it fails. Hey, big deal. Move on to the next, and just keep moving forward. And I'd like to kind of impart that into anybody who's listening or watching tonight, that, it's really important that you get in that mindset. If you really want to be in business for yourself, or if you really believe in that, that inventive nature, then just keep moving forward, and it's okay to have a great idea and to think something's fantastic and have it not work. Not everybody's going to agree with you. So, it happens. No big deal. Stop, move on. Don't let it drag you down. Now, that being said, Joel, let's go ahead and jump into this with, let's get a more in-depth. Let's take 5 or 10 minutes and just, share exactly what happened with the Spartan cutting boards and in your story there. And maybe you can share a few of the pitfalls, and then Greg and I can jump in and ask some questions along the way as well.
I'll give you the condensed story of it. So in about September 29th, 2014, the world found the Spartan knife block. And we put up that we were going to make, 50 of them, because it's an easy thing to kind of do on the bandsaw and the router table. And, that wasn't enough. So it got picked up by Gizmodo. And once something gets picked up by Gizmodo, and the rest of the interwebs prepare for the onslaught. And so, to make a long story short, we had, I don't know, about 300 orders in the first 3 days. And so my 1-car garage in the basement. And it was really fun at first watching the emails roll in from my online store as it kind of went bing, bing, bing. And then it was going bing, 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 bing. And then all of a sudden the excitement goes to sheer terror when you realize there's no way that you can keep up with this. So I talked with my lovely wife, and she said, yeah, let's go for it. And so within the very first week, by October 8th, we had a small warehouse rented, moved all my equipment in there, and I contracted a guy actually with a CNC to start making them at first, because I didn't have the experience to run a CNC that quickly, and I didn't have time to learn it. And so we started sourcing lumber, and we started doing those things, and that was our only product. And so it worked out really well in my head, and it was a terrible disaster where we had folks that were waiting 30, 40 days for their items. But every single one of them was happy, except one guy in Germany. I don't know why, but I still remember his email. But other than that, everything was a stunning success, and we got wonderful reviews. So the end result was that we kept making them, and we bought our own CNC, and we hired our first person, and we kept going, and we started adding to our product line. We started doing beer flights. We make a little nifty device called a page pal, which basically holds a book open while you're reading it, and those sell really well. And we added cutting boards to the list. And if you think of anything, wood's a really tough thing to find in the house if it's not trim or a bookshelf, which are very hard to ship, I might mention. So we all the rest. So we focus a lot on bar stuff. We focus a lot on kitchen items, things that are going to be useful, handled a lot. So we fill a very weird little niche that woodworking doesn't always get to from the big stores and things like that. And that's kind of our story and what we do now.
Now, Joel, what were you doing prior to the Spartan knife block? And what Jim Bashir's asked, why do you think Gizmodo picked it up? What do you think was the behind that?
Well, so what I did before that is I was a computer consultant for Apple, and I worked around Atlanta helping companies with that. And then I would work. Actually, YouTube more than anything was an inspiration to get into woodworking as a hobby. I have to thank Steve Ramsey and Mark and all the other woodworking channels, including yours, by the way. Yeah, that's right, Greg. And then and it was a fun pastime. I could make a few bucks on the side. I could build some things, and I could get my hands dirty in a way that I was using my mind during the day. And then so why Gizmodo picked that up? Because it was lightning in a bottle. It was something unique and crafty and interesting that people hadn't thought of. And we try to do those things. Actually, our slogan is anything but traditional woodworking. So when we look at a pizza peel, I say, I think Michelangelo of the Mutant Ninja Turtles really liked that. So why don't we make a face of his as the pizza peel, right? With like inlaid wood and stuff like that. Or why don't we make a cutting board with a chalk outline of a dead body on it? Because, why not, right? And so we look at these things, we look at the things that are useful, but maybe not what you would expect. And we have a demographic that we kind of like to hit. We kind of like the Gen Xers or millennials because they aren't, they think the rest of the world is a little old fashioned and which is fine. And we really enjoy it because it gives us a lot of freedom to make things and fail at them horribly. So, and a lot of things we make and they never sell, and we say, okay, let's go in a different direction.
Right on. So I'm currently trying to do something as well with this DPT wrench, and I'm not succeeding. It's not going as well as I anticipated. So, I'm having one of those experiences on the flip side of that. Now let's talk about financial. Let's talk about the money side of this. With,
Sure.
when you're getting ready for an idea, let's say you're getting ready to launch a product, and this is one thing that I learned the hard way over the years. I have a plan for it to succeed. I have a plan for it to fail miserably. I have a plan for it to do okay, and then I also have a plan for it to do really, intermediate. So before I even launch an idea or a concept, I know exactly what I'm going to do, no matter which way it goes, because I've gone in the past where I've had things just go in any one of those directions, and you have to do things differently for each one of those. So now, this being pretty new to you, when you were setting this up, do you think you could have done a little bit better planning? Did you end up spending more money than you needed to? What was your experience with that?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would tell you that I wasted a lot of money, a great deal of money trying to find the solutions to my problems. And sometimes the problems were self-imposed. Sometimes it was simply finding the right shipping company to do what we needed to get done. Some of them are very reasonable problems to have sunk in money one way or another. Sometimes it was buying a piece of equipment you thought you needed, but then you didn't. So it wasn't as useful as you thought it might be. But when you were saying two things, actually, to answer your previous questions, I like products that either work really well and sell really well, or I want them to fail miserable. I don't want them to limp along, because if you get in a situation where they limp along, that means you're putting effort and time into it, and your return is almost nothing, if not a draw on your spirit, on your money and things like that. So definitely, I like the extremes of that. I like something that takes off really well, and I like something that fails miserably, because at least then you have your answer. And then the second question is, when we launch a new product, let's say I'm making the next mousetrap, I will look at spending anywhere, depending on how much it costs to make that item, anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 before we ever see a dime on something. And a lot of folks who are watching this say, "Well, I'm just a hobbyist, and that's great, perfect, awesome." But that doesn't change for you. If you want to build that better mousetrap, you might be spending $50 to $500 on it, which is great. But for me to push our products out to distributors, or to get them onto our websites, or even to hire somebody that's better than me at product photography, to make it look good and appealing to the customer, that's a really important thing. You wouldn't think photography is a huge issue, but it's a huge issue, because if you have pate and it looks like poop, it's not going to sell very well. No matter how good your lighting is, you need to have a good photographer to tell that story. So that's there's also getting the right boxes to fit that product. So then you have to order in boxes for it. So there's lots of little catches, and especially when you're scaling up, it's actually really fun. It's a really fun challenge, because you get to go down this list of saying, if this sells really well, then we need to have this avenue. Maybe it's a species of wood, or maybe it's a hardware part that we need to source. If it fails miserably, you got to go, okay, well, now I have 1,700 rose-colored doorknobs. What do I do with 1,700 rose-colored doorknobs? And the answer is always the stocking stuffers.
Mm-hmm.
So
Jim asks, what do you, is there a metrics that you use to determine what you're going to spend your time and money on? Is it just one of those, hey, I think that would be cool, so let's try this? Or what do you have a metrics that you use for new ideas, new concepts?
No, I like the hey, that would be cool. Let's try that.
Yeah, you same
And
here.
yeah, well, it's I have to be passionate about something. We make a beer flight, and our beer flight is probably the #1 selling beer flight in America. That's actually made in America. Libby, the same people that we buy our glasses for our beer flight, they have their beer flight made in China, and it's an okay product. It's fine for their price point, but we charge a little bit more for the handcrafted or American cedar or American oak. And we have a clientele that likes that because they're are serious beer drinkers, or better yet, they're serious beer brewers who like to craft their own brews. And that's a really cool niche market. So we look at those things and we say, well, wouldn't it be cool if we put a chalkboard in it so you could write what your beer is? And that's our niche. So it's my dad always told me, he said, find a vacuum. He says, if you find the vacuum, you can fill the vacuum. You just got to find that little thing. And so a lot of our products have that little weirdness to them, that little special dab that will offset it from something else. Because in the end, we're competing not against home crafters. We're competing against factories in China with very, very nimble, cheap fingers, and they ship them in by the boatloads. And so we have to set aside our products as saying, listen, this is a made in America product. It's by witty, fun people that really enjoy your business, and I think you're going to enjoy the craftsmanship. And that's what we do. And as long as we have that basis, and then we add a cool idea on top of that, anybody, whether you're a home gamer and you want to sell at craft shows or flea markets, or you have an online store, an Etsy store, if you have that mix of those, if you can tell the story behind your product, the person that is in your market will buy what you have to sell.
You know, there's a lot. You just said a lot right there, and I think people, if they weren't paying attention, need to come back and rewatch this little short segment of what you were just sharing. Now, I want to mention a couple of things here. Now, running a business in the U.S., I can't speak for outside of it, requires some things. First of all, you need to have a DBA, at least in most counties. I believe they require you to have a DBA. You need to have a business license, depending on what, I guess a DBA is your business license in a lot of places. There's a lot of legalities towards owning and running a business, and we're not going to talk about that stuff tonight, but for those of you who are thinking about business-wise, it's important that you have that structure in place before you really jump hard into it, because it can catch you really quick, especially if you run into success like Joel did, if they're not in place before you start leaping into it. Now, it does not cost a lot of money to start a business. It is a pain in the butt. It does require some paperwork, and for the most part, in most places, unless you're in maybe New Hampshire or Connecticut, or it's one of those places that they charge ridiculous amounts of money for DBAs. And I could be mistaken, but it's not hard to do that. So make sure that you have all your legal stuff done as well. But none of us here are really qualified to talk about that. Now, Greg, you're getting ready to launch some products too on your website and some of the stuff you're doing. And you've launched the pens, and you've had some success with your twisted Sharpies. What do you have a plan for some of the stuff that's coming out that you think that, hey, if this does really well, how am I going to manage that? Do you have a plan in place, or is that something you're working on right now?
Well, this conversation is very timely. When you get ready to do a business launch, and like I've done a very, very soft launch on what I'm trying to do. I've got a handful of things that I haven't really shown off because I don't want people asking for them. That's sometimes the worst thing you can do, is show your hand, and then people, hey, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Because as you well know, it might be 2 or 3 years down the road before it happens. So a lot of the ideas, at least that I'm playing with, are kind of the slow cooker. And it's no secret. I'm working on things in the guitar world, and I've got one behind me, which is a stand. This is the first prototype of a stand I'm going to make. And everything is thought about differently from a design aspect, but I'm getting off track.
I want to interject right there. Have you thought about a Spartan guitar stand?
You know, as I was looking at the information for tonight's show, I did get on and look at Joel's. And I thought that would be perfect for a guitar, you know. But
I'll take my royalties with a check.
Hey, no problem. We'll split it. But so one of the things I'm looking at is custom design guitars, and I'm talking about one-off guitars, and that's what I'm going to center my business around. And when you do that, if you're one person and your sales pitch is, I make the guitars, I design them, I am a designer, I went to design school, all these, you know, fancy things, and I'm going to design guitars one at a time, you have to set yourself up to, I might have a 10-year waiting list. And what do? Because you're not going to hand produce 10 guitars a month. You're going to hand produce 1 or 2. And that's what I'm looking at. But this conversation is very good. It's like, how do you scale that up? How do you add an employee? How, you know, if you do get 100 orders, how do you fill those orders? Do you run to a factory in China, or do you hire, you know, guys in the USA or Canada or wherever to help you fill those orders? And does that work with the product that you're offering? So to answer your question, I've thought through it, Izzy. I don't have a plan for how I'm going to handle those different situations.
You know, I know that, like, we're talking a little bit about the, you know, the American made versus Chinese made, which is, you know, and I'm not dissing China products. It has hurt the American industry. Obviously, I don't need to get into that. But, you know, there's one thing that you can't do when you're dealing with imported products like that, especially from China, because I do have experience dealing with Chinese manufacturers, and they are the biggest pain in the butt in the world, and you never know what kind of quality you're going to get. So developing a product that's coming from overseas is a much lengthier process than developing a product here in the US, because you have to do prototype after prototype after prototype, and you finally get the quality you want. You say, okay, this is it. You put your order in. You may get, you order 500 of them. You may get 500 that were nothing like the prototype, and they're just crap. And they're not going to give you your money back. Okay, so basically you junk 500 of them, and you order another 500 and say, look, you screw this up, you're never going to hear from me again. And then a lot of it goes that way. So, and one of the really nice things about American products are like what Joel's doing here in the US. You know, he's creating jobs. You know, Joel's created 5 or 6 jobs through what he's done here. And that may not sound like a whole lot, but if there's 700 or 7,000 guys doing that, that adds up quick. You know, and when you're making products here in the US, you can really control the quality, and that's like what we're doing with the wrench. You know, there is not a better quality tool made. You know, we just put everything into making this one bad mamma jamma tool, and the price tag reflects it. But hey, I'm proud that it's made here. I'm proud that it's a badass tool. All right, not that I don't want to get into pitching that. So what I think what Joel's doing is respectful, and I think what you're doing is respectful. And if we have all of these, I'd like to encourage more people to start that, even if it's not a full-time gig, but if they have an idea or you know, a concept, to move forward with that. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, Joel's living proof of that. You know, went from, you know, not, you know, 0 to hero in a week. So, you know, pardon the expression, Joel, but you know that.
No, I appreciate it. And actually, if you don't mind, I'll interject. Your
Please.
Wrench is a prime example of, you see a vacuum and you need to fill it with something like a product that's very niche. You have something that's all thread. People deal with all thread. You've got fire systems guys. You've got pipe fitters. You've got welders. You've got all sorts of groups of people. Your problem, of course, is like everybody's problem, is how do you tell them about it? And
right.
And that's where, boy, if there's any other thing other than, you know, making the best dado that you can possibly make, it's making the best marketing pitch and finding your audience. And with each one of our products, we have to find, and it's not right away. Unlike the Spartan, which was really a flash in the pan, when we set out our beer flights, our beer flights didn't kind of rock and roll until maybe 6 months later. Kind of a slow uptick where we got online reviews, we got placement for them. We spend money every month making sure that we advertise for our products and that they're in front of the consumer. But even if you look on Amazon and you type in Missing Digit Woodshop, on each of our posts, we put a little boilerplate describing the company. We're a small company in the west side of Atlanta, and it talks a little bit about who we are. So even though you're dealing with a very cold world of online sales, you can make it warmer. And we have customers that thank us from all over the world. Here's another example. Every time we send out something from the shop, we throw a couple of lifesavers in there, or some dum-dum suckers in the box. And I don't know who. Somewhere down the line, I got shipments in from a computer company somewhere or something, and they sent some suckers or something in the box. And I thought, that's just the coolest thing ever. Let's do that. Well, I've probably spent $500 on candies so far, but I'll tell you what, almost every review says, man, this is awesome. And thanks a lot for the candy. That was a cool treat. So it's the stupid little things. It's letting people know that there's somebody alive on the other end when they're used to being on hold. And you've got a consumer base that will pay extra for these custom T-shirts, or that will pay extra to have, that special something that's important to them, because now we have the internet and everything's kind of its own niche. Arby's is doing these great commercials where they're reaching out to these really niche genres, right? So these video game genres, and there's one about a podcast that uses Arby's in their story because it's an ongoing saga, and they do these really niche things that they do these Facebook ads for, and it's talk about people just going crazy about them. They said, okay, this is a company that gets what I'm into and isn't a generic, I'm trying to please everybody, although they are, but they're being very specific about it. And that's a really good thing. Get your story, explain to people who you are and what you do and how you love your craft. And that's a really important part of selling both online and locally. And I think there's a good place for almost anybody in that you don't have to do our scale of things. You could be twice a month at a art craft show.
Yeah, I think one of the things, a lot of guys try the art craft shows and then they stop, but there's a missing point there. They'll go to a couple of them and it won't work out like they wanted them to, and so they just don't do it anymore. The idea is that, if you're going to do that, to not just give up, find a product that works for you, try different products. Trust me when I tell you this, sooner or later, you're going to find that product that sells really well. And, that's
sure.
And that's one of those things that I would encourage people that are doing that to not just stop, try something else, try a different show, try different products, try different ideas, and always cash and carry items are king when it comes to those things. So.
And work on those things that people can pick up and feel and touch and make them pause, because then you can interact with them. Even if you're not great with people, tell them about yourself a little bit. They call it an elevator pitch, where you've got 20 seconds to tell your life story and why this is important to not only you, but them. And you can really talk to them about either the piece itself, or you could talk to them about your investment into the thing that they're holding. And people eat up that crap. They love it because it gives them something to talk about when their friends come over and say, wow, that's a really interesting coaster. And who has ever in their life said, that's an interesting coaster? Right? I mean, well, okay. I'm sorry, Izzy. My bad. But
I saw one that had gears. They were all intermeshing in plexiglass.
Oh, see, that's...
Yeah.
That's
all you have to do is throw a gear in a conversation and you have my full attention. But you're right.
Right.
I don't want to point out that is probably the most important thing that if anybody takes away anything from this show tonight, and Jim just said it in the comment section, is that people like to buy stuff from people. You know, not only, you're not just selling them a product, you're selling them a story. So, you know, and that's, I think, probably one of the most powerful marketing tools that there is out there. When someone feels like they're buying from a person, they're supporting that person, they're buying a part of that person, essentially. It's a lot easier to justify maybe spending a little bit more on a handmade crafted item if they're buying the story, not just the item. So great point. Great point.
And I'll even drive that home just a little bit more, because if you look at successful Kickstarters or Indiegogo campaigns, you're going to look at those and they tell a video story. That's a major feature of it. And they tell the story and they talk about how cool this thing is that they want to do. And they want to improve the world on this. But half the story is talking about the people themselves behind it. Because to a person that's interested in investing in an unsure thing, they want to know that they're on solid footing with somebody that they could almost feel like they could make a phone call to, and that they know about, and that they can tell, hey, there's this guy Jim, he's got this new widget, it's a dinosaur, it's got 4 of them, there's a thing, and it runs on a drill, and you know, whatever it happens to be. And I really want to be a part of that program. And they feel invested in it because they're invested in you, and your story is important to that. And we do our best at that. Even we aren't particularly good at that. But that's definitely a really important part of the marketing side of things. Is to get your craft. Kyle Toth is fantastic at it. To talk about himself, to talk about his love and passion for that woodworking. That's a really great example of his craft, where he can tell stories without maybe even saying a word, but you see the passion in his working, and then he videos all that, and then people can see all of his different vases. So sure, yeah, keep with marketing. That is just as important as any of the fine tuning of your craft.
Yeah, and I will tell everybody who's listening that I suck at marketing. I'm terrible. I honestly am the worst marketer, I think, in business today. But I know that, so I find people who are good at it, and I ask them to help me. And I think that's another important aspect of having a success, is networking and knowing, you know, where to reach out, when to reach out, and how to reach out. And similar to what Joel did, reaching out for help with the CNC machine, because you knew there was no way you were going to be cutting out 1,000 cutting boards by hand and getting them delivered in a reasonable amount of time. So you reached out to someone who had a CNC. So, you know, networking is a huge important aspect of becoming part of that. And we've kind of got a little joke thing going called hashtag Izzy Team. And that's, you know, Tom over at the machining, Greg here, and then Wes, who's helping me with the website. And you know, these guys have been really integral in what I do, and where I'm taking things with some new tool products and some other ideas you'll see popping up in the future. But having that network, having that crew, and even if it's just reaching out to somebody like Greg and just chewing on their ear for a minute about an idea and getting some feedback from somebody you trust, it can help you make decisions that might be a little bit more difficult to make without that help. So having a team, a network, that's always a great thing to have. My talent is watching videos. Jeff says his talent is watching videos. Good. We need
excellent
folks like
talent.
you. We need guys like you, Jeff. Keep it up, man.
Now tell him to get a YouTube Red account so he can pay his money.
Right. I don't know why anybody wouldn't have a YouTube Red account. It's perfect. You know, do you guys do YouTube Red? I got it the day it came out. The day they released it, I bought it. I mean, I haven't watched an ad since, but I listen to music in my shop on YouTube. So, and I watch movies on, I mean, pretty much YouTube is my home now. But, you know, when you're listening to music in the shop, if you're listening to playlists, you can't stop, run over and click skip ad, you know, when you're over running the table saw. It's just so much easier to just, you know, pay the $8 or whatever it is, $8 or $9 to do it. So, anyway, So Greg, let's talk a little bit more about what you got, what you have up your sleeve. Now, you said you have some stuff coming out that you've been working on.
Well, sure, and I've shared a little bit of it here in one of our past episodes, I think, a couple tools and things like that. But essentially, I'm trying to build an entire product line, right? Not just guitars, but all the pieces that go with them. I actually did a little bit of patent research this past week, and every once in a while you have one of those ideas, and you're like, I wonder if anybody's thought of this, and then you find out, unfortunately, somebody has. But then if you do a little bit of research and you find, okay, they've patented this sucker, and actually one of the things that I developed for one of my prototype guitars, the patent ran out for it last year. And I'm actually applying the technology in a completely different way than the original patent holder did. But unfortunately, when somebody holds a patent, they hold the patent. You either pay them licensing or you have them make their thing. And I found out that one of the patents ran out last year. So that was kind of a fun thing. But yeah, so as far as working on the guitar side of things, I'm like I said, I've been doing a little bit of a soft rollout, but I'm holding back quite a bit because I think it's going to launch better as a group of things than it is individual items. If somebody comes to a web store and they want to buy a handful of tools because, hey, I want to start making guitars, or hey, I want to start working on and setting up guitars. You don't just need the special screwdriver to set up a guitar. You need a line of tools or, a handful of things to help. Let's just take leveling frets. You need a handful of different files and measuring devices to level frets. And I want to be able to roll those things out all at the same time. And you know how it goes, developing one little product. If it's your full-time job, developing one little product can take you months. And
months and months and months and months. Lots of money. If it's a tool, yep. you just never know. Yeah.
And I work 60 hours a week for somebody else. And so I come home and I say I nickel and dime. I don't sleep much, which I think is pretty common among makers. Mm-hmm. And so I come out here and I work, and you fail and you try different things. And being somebody on YouTube, I spend a lot of time making actual videos. And so everything kind of wants to eat into that time. But yeah, so coming back to your original question, I've got a handful of things I'm working on, trying to get them all rolled out. I think I'm looking at the spring of next year before I really launch. I've got a couple things I'm going to try and put out before Christmas because I think it's just smart because I've talked about them. But spring of next year, I'm hoping to start offering some real stuff.
That's awesome. I can't wait to see what you come up with. I'm pretty excited for you and about it. So it'll be cool when that happens. So I'd like to reach out to the audience again. You guys, if you have any questions, it doesn't necessarily have to be specifically about the topic tonight. Just any questions that have to deal with making or creating businesses out of what you're making, throw them up there in the chat section. And I will mention that tonight we're going to pick somebody out of the chat section, and we're doing a giveaway. A really cool giveaway. This is the first night we're doing it, and it's nothing to sneeze at either. We're doing a giveaway from one of next week's guests, and it's the miter set. I don't know if you guys saw the video I did on that. It's a tool for accurately setting table saws to miters, and we're actually going to have the owner of the miter set company, Jerry, with us next week, and we're going to talk to him about inventions and about processes. And you just touched on a topic that's really kind of close to this about patents, where being a successful businessman doesn't necessarily mean you invented the product.
That's right.
And if some people are thinking, well, I'd love to have a business, but I don't know anything about being, whatever. Well, you don't necessarily have to have the most creative mind in the world for product concepts. If you're a good business manager or good at marketing, or you simply just want to get out and try something on your own, there are lots and lots of products available and ideas available that you can license and move forward with on your own. And the miter set is a prime example of something that Jack Perry did his name's Jack Perry, sorry, that he did with the miter set. So we're going to be talking about that next week, about inventions and about prototyping and about all that good stuff. Just a little plug for next week's show. And we're going to be giving that thing away towards the end of tonight. And Joel, you're going to be picking the winner tonight. So to put a little pressure on you.
I guess then that I'm excluded. I was kind of hoping, but that's fine. I'll be glad to have the honor.
No, we'll give one. Well, Joel, we'll give one away next week too, while Jack's on the show. So make sure you show up for that one. So.
I will.
All right.
Well, I think I just lost my train of thought a little bit there. Crud! It'll come back to me.
It happens to me all the time. Joel and I were talking about a house that we got over in Georgia just before the show started, and I could not remember the name of the damn town.
Well,
it was Augusta.
I was thinking about this. It's funny, I'm an architect. I work with a bunch of architects, but at some point, somebody at the head of the spear is a businessman, right? And is also an architect, because in order to own an architectural firm, you have to have a license to practice architecture. And they don't send architects to business school. They send you to architecture school. And a lot of architects really suck at business, and I'm one of them. And I think it's a good point. Inventive people aren't always the greatest businessmen, and business people aren't always the most inventive. But those two together form a really good alliance. And for me, back to what you said earlier, Izzy, having a team, having some people selected that are going to help you run your business once it gets started is something that if you're a creative person, if you're a maker, you've got to have those people, whether that's an accountant to take care of the books, because Lord knows I haven't studied how to do taxes, right? Or a lawyer to help you with things like patent law or licensing products. I mean, even if you called somebody who had a patent and wanted to license it, there's a lot of paperwork that goes with that. But then even back to being prepared for success. If you're thinking you're going to sell one thing, it's worth setting up your business now, getting that corporate bank account, which isn't as easy as you would think it might be, right? But once you get those pieces established, then back to the topic for today, if you have a modicum of success, you've already got that checking account, you've got the lawyer, you've got everything that you need to make it all happen, even though you're not a business person.
Yeah, it's, speaking to that end, we were just talking, I just got a question, what is a great starter product? And the Shogun Jimmy asked that question. Now here's something interesting, and I'm going to put my 2 cents in, and you guys jump in, of course. Who the hell knows? 1970s, a guy picked up some round sand rocks off of a beach in California, started painting happy yellow faces on them, called them My Pet Rocks, and made $6 million in the next 3 years selling pet rocks with a white yellow painty face on them.
Yeah.
Okay. Those damn finger widgets, the worry stones back in the 80s, it was the worry stones, late 80s. They had the little soft stones that were usually some kind of a quartz or something that had a little thumb indent you could rub with your thumb. Those did really well for a while. Now you got things like the fidget rings you're seeing pop up all over YouTube now. Those are business ideas, guys. If you don't have to patent that. You don't have to go get somebody's permission. If you have an idea for one, make it, put it up on Etsy. Right now, good time to do that.
Although I would really like to take a patent on a rock, because that would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, why not? My Pet, well, he patented, he copyrighted the idea,
Sure.
But so when it comes to ideas, even, you'd never really know. Some things that I thought would be phenomenal ideas that I've tried in the past, just totally bombed. After spending thousands of dollars on them, getting professional help to help market and do some other things, and they're just completely bombed. Some things that
it's a tough world when everybody's trying to sell you something. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes you don't have to come up with the great idea. We didn't come up with beer flights. We just make a better version. And we tell a good story with that beer flight. So those are two things that put us above average. to the market. And if you come up with a better rubber band, that's great. Sell your better rubber band. It doesn't have to be a brand new. Not everything is going to happen like the Pet Rock. Not everything is going to happen like the Spartan knife block. Those are all flash in the pans kind of things. They have a life of their own, and you can find if you're going to make a product and you're at home, I would start with seasonal things. For me, I'd probably take $1.50. I'd buy a laser cutter, and I'd start making ornaments for friends and family, and then their friends and family. And I'd start making ornament business, or I'd start engraving on Yeti cups, because that's a good way that you can spend 2 hours a night and come up with these things. But you're going to have some basic understandings. You're going to have to understand what vector artwork is. So if you don't know what that is, you might have to learn how to do vector work in Illustrator or CAD or whatever you need to design your programs. So always look to see what there is around you that people can interact with you. Like laser cutters are a good example because they're cheap now. You can get Chinese laser cutter, $1,500, cuts through just about anything that you need. And you can make really pretty ornaments out of plastic materials or wood or whatever. And that's a great starting place to be. Women drive purchasing. Look at arts and crafts. Look at those things that maybe have a little shabby chic going to them. Look at the things that people want in their house to display. And then again, tell your story, because that's the thing that's going to sell it. Because they want to have that welcome to my home sign hanging up by their door, and they want to be able to tell their friends where they got it from, what the guy was, who the gal was that was so cool about it, and they do these things, and I was just helping somebody out, and it was really fun, and I'm glad it's hanging here. And find whatever widget it is that people are interested. Look at Walmart, look at Kohl's, look at those aisles of the cheap Chinese crap that they import, and then find a better version of that and then sell it to your friends and family.
Well, and I would say, if you're looking to get into something here in the next couple months, one of the things that people struggle with this time of year anyway is buying Christmas things, right? I have to buy for this person, and they're so difficult to buy for. What can you put in their hands to make their life easy, make their search for the right thing easy? And that sounds like maybe an easy thing to do, and it's very, very difficult because there are thousands of companies out there trying to crack that nut. But if there's something niche-wise, and Joel, you talked about the niche earlier, but niche-wise, that you can just make somebody's Christmas present hunt simple, you've got something. And it can be a stocking stuffer. It can be a small item. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant or fancy or anything like that. Something that people would appreciate.
Yeah, you must know my wife. The most impossible person to buy for. Yeah. We live a comfortable life, and she can pretty much have what she wants. If she wants to buy a fancy pair of shoes, she can do it, right? She does not buy things for herself. She just doesn't do it. And then you can, I asked, get this, she has a good relationship with our daycare gal. We have a private daycare gal that just watches a handful of neighbor kids, and she goes over there. Now she chit chats with the neighbor, with her a lot. So I actually have her trying to get some ideas. I have my daycare gal chit-chatting with my wife, trying to get some ideas about what I can buy her for Christmas. I hope she's not watching this show right now.
Well, the sidetrack of that too, right?
Right.
A lot of women now have Pinterest accounts, and you can just hop on there and see what they like. That's a good trick.
She doesn't do that. She saw me. She used to do the Amazon thing, like the gift ideas. But I bought her one year. I bought her all stuff off that for Christmas. Now she doesn't do it anymore because it's like she's purposely trying to make it hard on me. So she wants me to prove that I love her enough to figure it out, I guess. I don't know what it is. But, to touch a little bit on, and like what Joel was saying with the seasonal gifts, that's a great idea. There's all kinds of other things that are you can do small product wise to get started. You don't have to go out and create this coolest thing that ever was. That's not what businesses are built on. It helps. The lightning in a bottle is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean that's what you have to do if you're interested in generating more income or just trying to get out from underneath the corporate thumb. There's lots and lots of things to do. And again, whenever it comes to this kind of thing, do your homework, do your research, put the time in. It doesn't take as long as you think. It does take some time, but yes, try it. Now, I'll share a couple of stories that were lightning in a bottle. And a guy back in 1900s, really early, 1914, 1916, a young man was having a problem keeping bolts spinning off of, or not spinning off of bolts. So he took a washer, he cut it in half and twisted it, and that kept the nut from spinning off. He never worked another day in his life after it was patented. He lives on a big ranch, or lived on a big ranch in Sierra Vista, Arizona, or outside of Sierra Vista, Sierra Vista, Arizona, outside of Naco area. He invented the lock washer, and he, I don't know if he invented it, but he patented it, and he literally never worked another day in his life. I met the guy once when I was very young, and he was super duper old. He knew my grandfather. Had a real nice ranch. So, there's that lightning in a bottle idea. Aristocob, another gentleman who follows along the channel and watches me a lot and has a lot of good input, he just shared that the Phillips screwdriver. Mr. Phillips was actually submitting a patent for an inferior product when he came across the Phillips screwdriver, the patent for it, licensed the idea and brought it to market. It wasn't his concept. He had an idea for a screwdriver. He was looking at patents, found another one, and brought it to market. Now, I mean, everybody in the world knows what a Phillips screwdriver is. Well, maybe not some of those New Guinea, backwood tribes, but everybody else does. So, so it does not have to be lightning in a bottle every time. It helps. But, for those of you who are interested in trying, I would definitely encourage you to do that. We are getting close to the end of the show, guys. So if there's any questions from the audience before we go, I'm kind of going back and forth here. Women do not want stuff, Izzy. Thank you. Know what mom knows. Women do not want stuff, Izzy. Any questions from the
Izzy,
audience?
can I talk about?
Yep.
Can I talk about failure?
Sure.
Yeah, because we have.
I don't know if we have enough time.
Yeah. No.
Whole nother show.
It's a whole nother show, isn't it? We'll start a project and we'll invest the time and money into something, and I'll look at the end of it and go, no, never mind, we're done. Or we bring it to market and we make a bunch of them, and they don't sell particularly well, which is always depressing. So but that's okay, because that's just a thing. So, and you're talking about like lightning in the bottle things, which are amazing, and nobody can ever predict those things, or at least not well. But if you have consistently bad ideas, you'll get a good idea, and then it'll run. Or if you have consistently good ideas, you might get a few bad ideas. Personally, I'd rather have a bunch of bad ideas and get a good one, because at least then I know where I stand and I can get better at it. It's really hard to top whatever the top is, because then you have no place to go but down. So failure is a really important learning curve for us, and it lets us know not only in just product development, like finding the thing that they want, but it lets us know when we have just a single process where it's just not working for us. We're trying to get something done. We don't have the right tool. We don't have the right sandpaper. We don't have the right finish, whatever that is. It's a whole bunch of failures all day long that we learn to be better at it. And we refine ourselves and we get better at it, and we get more efficient at it, so we don't waste as much time or money. So I'm a big fan of failure. I'm living proof of it. And I can, if I can get better, anybody can. But you have to do something. You have to start with something. So when you're looking at that product to sell, or when you're looking at that thing that you want to get out there, if it fails, that's fine. Go to the next thing, learn from your mistakes, get the next thing out. And your wrench, which I'm sure will be a big success, even if it's not, you'll have that next stepping stone to look at for the next thing. It's not a bad thing. It's just a thing.
No, and I knew from the beginning that I launched the wrench that's not meant for a woodworking audience to a woodworking audience, because that's the audience I have. And, so I knew that I wasn't expecting, the clouds to part and angels to start singing and money to start just dropping into my pockets. I wasn't expecting that. So it really is about the marketing side of it. And we have we have a lot more stuff to do with the marketing. But I think what you just said is so important. Is the most important thing when you are trying to succeed is celebrate your failures, because you've learned something. You know that, hey, this one didn't work. Okay, knock that up on the chalkboard and move on to the next. Don't let that be. I think that's where so many people stumble, is they have this idea, man, they think it's awesome, it's great, this is going to be huge, and then it just kind of peters out and nothing really ever happens with it. Don't let that be your brick wall. That's all. It's so much it's so easy to stop right there and go, oh, hang your head down and stop. Don't let it be your brick wall. Let it be a lesson and move forward. So let me see if I got any questions here. Useless. All right, Joel, do you have the chat section open at all, Joel?
I don't believe I do.
Okay.
Possible
I'm gonna think of a number between 1 and 40.
Okay.
Guys, number between 1 and 40, we're giving away the miter set right now. That's going to be a brand new one from Miter Set Company. They'll send it to you. I believe it's a $70 item alone by itself. It's a pretty nice product to have on your table saw for getting real accurate miters. So I want everybody to pick a number between 1 and 40. And Joel, don't look at the chat section. Don't look at the chat section.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Keep going, guys. Keep going. All right, Joel, let's go ahead and pick a number between 1 and 40, whatever number you want.
28.
28. All right, stop. We got our number, guys. Let me go back down through this real quick. Man, I'm glad we didn't have 600 people in here, or this would be a mess. We have a bunch of 27s, 38, 777, 14s. No 28s. And too many 27s. So the next closest number to 27, besides 27, is boy, what a crazy way of doing this, huh? Let's go with I thought I saw. All right, it looks like the next closest number. 32? Is that the next closest number? 26. Is there a 26 in there? Or... All right, I got it. Nathan Toning, 27.6. All right, you got it. Nathan, you've got the miter set 27.6. I guess that's pretty close to 28.
Pretty close.
For future guys, no points, no decimal points. That just confuses me. You got to use fractions. So, Greg, any final thoughts before we call it a night? Greg, are you there? I think Greg froze. All right.
He looks very, very still.
Yeah, he does. Let's get the screen on him, everybody, so we can focus on Greg. Feel free to draw mustaches on him or whatever. So anyway, guys, Nathan, if you will please PM me your address. You can do it on Facebook, or you can send an email to rusticman1973@yahoo. I'll get that sent out to you. Excuse me. Joel, you want to do our exit?
Sure. Is that moonshine that you're drinking tonight?
Sweet whiskey.
Well, it's thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'm glad we talked a little bit about how we do our business. And I think the end result is that you have to do something in order to make it successful or fail. And I think there are a lot of smart people in our groups that can come up with ideas, and now they just need to tell the world about them, and then they need to get them out there.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Everybody, thank you so much for coming tonight. Don't forget next week, Jack Perry. We're going to be talking about inventions, miter sets, licensing ideas that aren't necessarily ours, more fun stuff about businesses, and of course, the always mighty woodworking. Greg, you made it back. Why don't you say good night to everybody?
Have a good night.
Bye, guys.